Elaiza. I am based in New Zealand, and fun fact, when you look at the Power Automate home landing page, if you scroll all the way down, you're going to see me. So there's me. I'm on the Power Automate homepage, so that's pretty cool. So just a little bit about me. I live in the capital city of New Zealand. I first started out with Dynamics CRM version 4, so it's now named as Dynamics 365. So this is way back in the day, and fast forward to today, I have picked up so much love for the wider stack, and I'm pretty much well known for Power Automate. But before Power Automate, I also fell in love with what was then called ADX Studio Portals, which is now Power Pages. And this is what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to share some low-code tips for fields and Power Pages. Now, if you have any questions, I can't really see the chat right now, so David or Hugo or even Joss, you might need to help me out and let me know if there's any questions in the chat afterwards. Okay, so in terms of the agenda, this is what I'm going to go through with you all today. So the first one is how to format the date and time for your fields in Power Pages. So a typical use case for this is if you are based somewhere outside of the USA. So for me, I'm based in New Zealand. Our date format is different, so I want to display it differently on the portal. The second one is, did you know that you can make a Dataverse lookup column appear as a dropdown? Well, you're about to find out. And then for number 3, I'm going to show you how to pre-populate fields in Power Pages. So I've got 2 tips there for you. And then I'm going to show you how to format a phone number field using Regex. So that's going to be really cool. And then I'll talk about helper text. If we have enough time, then I'll show you how to change the label for a button without any code. So you don't need to use JavaScript. This is all inbuilt within Power Pages. Okay, so let's jump into it. I'm going to head over to my browser. And over here, I'm in the portal management model-driven app. So this is where you can do a lot of your configuration outside of the design studio of Power Pages. So for the purpose of this call, I just have a simple web page set up here. So in this web page, I've got a list display, and this list will allow you to create a new row in Dataverse. So I've just created a application table with just some fields just for the demo. Note that this Power Pages site is not externally public. I haven't made that available yet. So this is all just inside within the confinements of Power Pages. Okay, so the first one that I wanted to talk about was in regards to the date and time. So what I mean by that, from what I said earlier in the call, by default, the language for Power Pages will be set to English US. So that means that the date and time fields will always appear as MDYYY. In other words, it will start with month, and then it'll followed by the date, and then followed by the year. But if you live outside of the USA, such as me, I live in New Zealand, our date format is different. It goes by date, month, year. So how do we go ahead and change that for our overall site in Power Pages? So the trick to doing that is you create a site settings record, and in here is where you can define what that date time format will be. So I'm going to create a new site setting record. I'm going to call this date, time, date format, and I'll select my Power Pages site. And then the value that I'm going to put in here is mm/YYY. And then I'm going to click Save and Close. So this will now create that new site setting. And because I've created a new, Power Pages configuration record, I'm going to clear the cache. And then once that has been cleared, I'm going to refresh my Power Pages page, and I'll show you what it now looks like. So now when I create the button, and as you can see, that date of birth, date and time field has now been updated to show the format that I had entered in that site setting. So now if I pick a date, it will now correctly show as date, month, and year. So that's the first tip. So the second tip is to do with changing a lookup to a drop-down. So I have a city lookup column in Dataverse. So this is just showing me the major cities in New Zealand. So as of right now, it's showing as a lookup. You can search for it, you can select it, and then it'll get added to the field. But what if you want to show that as a drop down to the end user? You don't want to go and change all of that in Dataverse in the back end. You can simply do it in the front end for Power Ages. And again, to do that, we are going to head over to the Portal Management app. And I'm going to go to Basic Forms. And I'm going to open up the basic form that represents that create form that you see that pops up. So I'm going to click on Edit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add what we call basic form metadata. And here's where I can change that functionality. So instead of having it appear as a lookup, we're going to make it appear as a drop down. So in here for the type, I select attribute. And in here, I select the control style as render lookup as drop down. And then in the next field that you see down below is the attribute logical name. So this will now show me all of the fields that are added to that basic form. So if you don't see a field on your form, it's because you haven't added it to your form. So that's another tip there for you. So now I'm going to select city, and I'm going to, again, hit save and close. So we'll go back and clear the cache, and it's because I've created a new configuration record for the metadata for the basic form. So now if I hit the refresh button, and we'll repeat those steps, I click on create, we can now see that the lookup is rendered as a drop-down. See, so just with a bunch of clicks, no code, I can get it looking as a drop-down. Cool. So the next one that I'm going to go through is pre-populating a field. So in here, we've got an email address field. And as a signed-in user against my profile account, I have an email address. So what if I want to pre-populate this field? Can I do that without code? Yes, you can. Same thing. Go to your Portal Management Model-Driven app, and in your basic form, for that form that you want to pre-populate data with, you want to create new metadata again. So I'm going to click on that new basic form metadata. I'm going to select attribute. And this time I'm going to select email address. So now when I scroll down, we keep going. There is a section here called pre-populate field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select current portal user as a type. And then in here, it's going to show me all of the fields that are associated to the contact table. And all I need to do is find that email address field. So if I go and select the email field and I hit save and close, and we'll repeat those steps. So I'll clear the cache, and then I'll refresh this. I'll click on create. Ta-da! There you go. So I've pre-populated the email address field. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to hit submit, because there's one other tip that I want to show that comes up very frequently with Power Pages FAQs. So I've created my application. Now, if I go back to the actual model-driven app that shows me the applications, and if I hit refresh, you'll notice that the contact field is blank. So how do we go about that, do the populating it? Well, this time around, instead of creating your basic form metadata, and you can do it, it will work. What you want to do is head over to the additional settings tab. And in here is where you're going to see several fields. Oh, add removed. Interesting. And then we come across that before. Anyways, if you scroll down, you'll see a section called Associate Current Portal User on Insert. And in here is where you want to check this tick box. And in the drop-down field, you want to select the lookup column that will reflect that signed-in user. So in my scenario, it is this contact lookup column field. So now if I hit save and close, And I'll clear the cache, however you want to say it. And then I'll hit the refresh button. And so now if I click on create, and if I now hit submit, and I go back here, it will now automatically populate that lookup field behind the scenes because of those changes that I made to the additional settings tab of the form. Okay, so down to the last two tips, which is applying regex to a phone number field. So again, we can do this out of the box by creating metadata. So I'm going to go to the basic form metadata form. I'll click on add new basic form metadata. I'll select attribute, and then in this field, the attribute logical name, I'll select the phone number field. And if we scroll all the way down, there is an area where you can provide some validation. And in here is where you have the option to enter some regex. I'm just going to go ahead and copy one that I prepared in Notepad. So just, where's my mouse? Oh, here we go. So I'll just go and paste that in there, and I'll explain it in a bit. And then I can also provide a warning message as well. This is so that when the user tries to submit a phone number that doesn't meet what you've defined in here, it'll throw that message. So I'll just paste it in there. So basically what this regex is saying is that it needs to start with +64 or 0. And then the second lot of numbers need to either start with 2 or 8. And then the digits need to be between 7 and 9. And the dollar character represents the end of the string value. And then with my validation message, I can enter it here. So I'm going to hit save and close. And I'm going to go back to portals, services, and clear the cache. And then I'll go back to my Para Pages site, I'll refresh it, and then I'll hit the create button. So now if I don't start with +64, so let's say I start with 5, 6, 7, 8, 0, and I also don't need the number of digits. If I try to hit submit, it's going to show and throw that validation error message. And if I click on that, it's going to take me to the field. So this is if I had a long list of fields on the web form. If I click on this hyperlink, it'll take me directly to the field. So now if I follow the format that's been specified, so I'll just do this. I should now be able to submit, and it's allowed me to submit because I've conform to the requirements of what I've defined. And just another tip, if you don't know how to create regex expressions, I did a quick check to see, what AI tools are available out there. And so I found this. So if there's something that you're trying to validate and you want to create it as a regular expression, give this website a go. Not sponsored at all. I just tried it out myself. And I put it into Para Pages and it worked. So there you go. Okay, so then the last tip that I want to talk about is helper text. So helper text, I didn't know this, by the way. I only found out about this years ago when I was looking into this. Helper text is the bit of text that appears on fields on websites or web forms, and they help educate the end user what it is that they need to do with this field. So sticking with the phone number, that's what I'm going to show you next. So I'm going to go back to the basic form metadata field, and I'll just edit this. And then if I scroll down through the section on here called description instructions. So what you want to do is you want to change add description from no to yes. And in here, it allows you to position the helper text. You can either have it above the field, below the field, or above the label. So I'm going to have it as below the field. And in here, you have the option to use the description that you've entered for that column or field in Dataverse when you created that field in the first place. So I'm going to select no because I want to customize it a little bit. Again, this is not using any code. This is low code. So in here, what I can do is I can, let's say, add this piece of text. So I'm just going to paste this into here. And I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to clear the cache. Cache me outside. Does anyone know about that? Okay, so I'm going to hit create. And as you can see, we have that helper text appearing. So that's pretty cool. That's done without low code. So I'm going to show you a few more cool tips in case you don't know. So this time I'll change it to above the field. So what you can do is you can actually include HTML tags. So what I need is if I just copy and paste this one here from a notepad, in here I've got the hyperlink HTML tag. So what's going to happen now is when I hit save and when we go and view that updated configuration in the portal, we're now going to see a hyperlink so that an end user can click on that. So this is typically used when you have something like terms and conditions or read the fine print here. This is something that you can do as well in your helper text. Did it work? Okay, well, it worked during my demo, so why does that not work? Okay, I'm not sure, but normally it does. But what would happen is that it would show it and it would load. So then if we go back here, other things that you can do is change the color. So if I go ahead and just grab this and paste it in here. So in here, I can use some more HTML tags. In here, I'm defining what the color should be of the font. This is if I want to use it outside of the CSS of the Parapages site. I can also put in italics as well. So if I hit save, and we'll go and refresh the Parapages site, and I'll hit refresh. And now if I click on create, we should see it as green and in italics. Yeah. So then the other thing that you can do is you can also use hex colors as well. So what I showed you earlier was that I just simply defined the color by its name, but if I used a hex color as well, that will work. So I hit save and close. Oops, sorry, I forgot to remove a character in there. 1 second, let me just remove that. And we refresh. And I'll refresh my web page. And then it should now appear as gray, which it is. So those are my low code tips. I have one more slide that I'm just going to go back to. So here it is. So one thing that you can do if you want to, get upskilled and learn about Parapages, and something that's helped me greatly in terms of doing a refresher, because I've stepped away from work in the last few months because, as David said, I've had a baby. So in here is where you can find a link to Nicholas Haydock's Parapages training course. So Nicholas Haydock is another Microsoft MVP based in Canada. He started with the actual company ADX Studio Portals, so he really knows what he's talking about. If you don't want to do the training course, there are other materials that you can find online, such as YouTube or in podcasts. If you guys are familiar with Nick Dolman and Ulrich, I won't pronounce her last name because I don't know how to pronounce it and I don't want to get it wrong. They both have a new podcast called, I believe it's called the Power Platform Boost podcast. If I've gotten that wrong, if Nick's on the call, I am sorry. And if you want to connect with me, here's where you can find me. I have my own YouTube channel and I also have a blog. So thank you very much for having me in this month's Power Platform Community call. And I hope you all enjoyed my low-code tips. And you can hear me correctly because I am talking very quietly right now. Because when you don't want to wake a baby. Trust me, you do not want to wake a sleeping baby.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elaiza. I kind of was thinking like you need your own theme song now. Like it's 3 a.m. and my demo is awesome, right? We can get Matchbox 20 to redo that for us, maybe. I don't know. We can see. I'll make a call.
It's funny that you mentioned Matchbox 20 because they actually are coming to New Zealand next year.
Awesome. They are actually out here at the Hollywood Bowl this week, actually, or next week or something. So yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. I mean, go get some rest. You've earned it. If this is Elaiza at 3 a.m., wow, like you must be even more amazing during regular hours. So you've earned it. Please go get some sleep. Thank you for staying up and sharing, or getting up early. Actually, she didn't stay up. We talked about this before. I was like, please tell me you're not staying up all night to come to this. So she got up early. So thank you.